This gripping story begins with Dr. James Aranda in an interview, recalling the horrific incident that took place a year ago on the night of the supermoon. That night, billions of people around the world were exposed to the moonlight and fell victim to violent mutations, transforming into monstrous creatures. Humanity's foundation was shaken. But the real terror is that it's about to happen again. Another supermoon is coming soon. When the interviewer asks how this happened, Dr. Aranda doesn't explain. He simply warns that no one should step out under the moonlight that night and that everyone must have a survival plan. He adds that scientists are working tirelessly on a solution and assures that humanity will overcome this crisis. We are then introduced to Wesley Marshall, a former soldier and molecular biologist, who now lives with his sister-in-law Lucy and his niece Emma. Lucy lost her husband during the last supermoon and is paying tribute to his memory. After losing his brother so suddenly, Wesley refuses to give up under any circumstances. He has vowed to protect Lucy and Emma at all costs. To prepare, he fortifies the house like a fortress, barricading doors, setting traps outside, electrifying the fence, and installing a monitoring system. Meanwhile, frightened neighbors make their own desperate preparations for the dreadful night. Lucy's neighbor Reagan stops by, leaving candy for Emma before heading home, while Lucy gives her some supplies and reminds her to take care. At the same time, Wesley confronts his reckless neighbor Cody, urging him to stop doing target practice on the street because it endangers children's lives, and he even nearly hit Wesley's fuel drums. But Cody brushes it off, saying he's just preparing for the hellish night when everyone will have to fend for themselves. Back home, Wesley tells Lucy the house is sealed and reminds her of the survival rules: never open the door, stay quiet, and avoid attracting attention. He warns that if things go bad, she must not hesitate to shoot anyone to protect herself or Emma, no matter who it is. Wesley then says goodbye to Emma, assuring her that nothing will break into the house to harm them. Though hesitant to leave them alone, Lucy reminds him that the scientists need him, and with that, Wesley locks the girls inside and departs. Outside, chaos spreads as people rush to find safe places. Elsewhere, scientists and military officials gather for a press conference. Dr. James introduces the team working tirelessly to find a cure for this monstrous threat, with Wesley being an important member. He explains that they have developed a serum called Monserane, designed to merge with human DNA and block the effects of the supermoon. He emphasizes that tonight will be the decisive test to see if a permanent cure can be found. Inside the facility, volunteers are brought in as test subjects. They are injected with the serum and will be exposed to the moonlight to see if it works. One of them is Miles, the husband of scientist Amy, who is chained tightly inside a massive cage. As the sun sets, the entire population begins the countdown in fear. Wesley and his team suit up in protective gear to shield themselves from the moonlight mutation and approach the test subjects, which include Miles, another woman, and 2 men. As the countdown ends, tension rises. The woman panics and tries to back out, begging to leave, but it's too late. The testing shed roof opens, revealing the full moon in the sky. The moment is unbearable, but shockingly, none of the volunteers transform. The serum appears to have worked. Relief and hope return to the scientists' faces as they prepare for the next phase. Meanwhile, in Lucy's neighborhood, a dark shadow swiftly passes by, alarming both Cody and Lucy. Lights in the houses flicker, and the atmosphere turns even more sinister. Lucy checks the monitor, but everything seems normal. At Reagan's house, she calls out for her mother but gets no response. Suddenly, her breathing quickens, panic sets in, and when she turns around, a monstrous shadow looms ready to attack. Back at the testing wing, Dr. James steps in among the volunteers as Wesley shows him firsthand how the serum has successfully blocked the mutation. Wesley explains that the mutation might actually be some kind of dormant defense response that the supermoon triggers. James asks why all of this has only begun now, but Wesley has no answer. Suddenly, something strange starts happening to Miles's body. His transformation begins. Dr. James immediately orders the serum to be sprayed on him, but Miles, with fur already sprouting on one arm, grabs the machine and hurls it away. In moments, chaos erupts as the other 3 volunteers also begin to change. The entire facility system malfunctions, and Amy screams desperately to shut the roof, but a power failure makes it impossible. As panic spreads and the volunteers fully transform into monstrous creatures, Wesley realizes Miles is completely exposed and stopping his mutation is impossible. He tries to tranquilize him, but it fails. Miles, fully mutated, attacks a scientist and escapes. Amid the chaos, Wesley carries an injured colleague to safety, but another scientist, in panic, fires wildly and accidentally frees another caged monster. The unleashed werewolves massacre the scientists, including the very one who pulled the trigger. Soldiers try to evacuate whoever they can, while Amy, fleeing for her life, collides with Wesley and his injured partner. A terrifying roar echoes down the corridor, forcing them to take another route and barricade themselves inside a room just as the beast reaches the door. Back at Lucy's house, she shudders watching monstrous movements on the cameras. Cody, armed and waiting, shoots at a creature he spots in a tree. Meanwhile, Wesley's injured partner succumbs to his wounds. Amy insists they should wait for help, but Wesley firmly says no help is coming and staying put means death. Amy reminds him that going outside means exposing themselves to moonlight and mutating as well, but Wesley insists they can counter it with the serum. At that moment, Cody, still on watch, is crushed when a heavy freezer smashes through his window and knocks him into direct moonlight, triggering his transformation. Meanwhile, Wesley and Amy cautiously navigate through the facility, gathering as many weapons and supplies as possible. Wesley sets his watch to track the 1-hour effectiveness of the serum, warning that if either of them mutates, the other must continue alone. As soon as they step outside, they face the transformed Miles. Wesley aims his gun, but Amy stops him, instead shooting a gas canister that explodes and stuns Miles temporarily. The two escape into a car and drive off, with Wesley determined to reach Lucy's house. On the way, he calls to check on her. Lucy reports seeing a werewolf enter Cody's house on the cameras. Suddenly, someone outside calls for help. It's Reagan, covered with a tarp to block the moonlight and prevent mutation. Lucy, terrified, wants to save her but knows it's an enormous risk. Over the phone, Wesley yells frantically for her not to open the door and to follow the survival rules. But Lucy, unable to watch the neighbor's child so vulnerable, breaks protocol. Speaking through the camera's speaker, she tells Reagan to stay calm, but it's already too late. A monstrous creature leaps on Reagan and drags her away. At that same moment, Wesley and Amy's car collides with a bus, cutting off the call. Lucy watches in horror as outside her friend is gruesomely devoured by a werewolf, the beast roaring so ferociously that it chills Lucy and Emma to their core. In the wrecked car, Wesley and Amy are trapped but manage to escape just before flames consume it. Meanwhile, Cody, now a werewolf, hurls Reagan's lifeless body against Lucy's electric fence, shorting out her only line of defense. Lucy sends Emma to a safe spot, and when she sees Cody lingering near the fence, she sprays his face with pepper spray, making the monster howl in pain. Meanwhile, Wesley and Amy continue forward on foot, trying not to draw the creature's attention. But soon they stumble upon an entire pack of wolves rampaging near parked cars. With no other choice, they crouch low and sneak slowly behind the vehicles. Suddenly, one of the beasts catches their scent. Wesley quickly pulls Amy under a car, hoping their presence will be masked by the overwhelming mix of smells. The creature smashes windows while sniffing around, then bends low to the ground near them. For a tense moment it seems to recognize them, but then it turns away. Elsewhere, Cody pours water over his burning eyes, and as soon as his vision clears, he lets out a terrifying howl, making Lucy shudder even more. Believing the danger has passed, Wesley and Amy crawl out from under the car, but at that moment Wesley's watch begins to beep. Their hour is up, and the serum's protection is ending. The sound immediately alerts the nearby werewolves, who spring into action. Forced to run for their lives, Wesley and Amy dash desperately until they spot the closing gate of a supermarket. They rush forward, and a boy standing inside pulls them in just in time. But as soon as they get inside, masked survivors ambush them. Amy is restrained with a knife at her throat while Wesley tries to explain that they are scientists working on a cure. The masked group refuses to believe, with one of them saying there is no cure and suggesting they throw the pair back outside to the monsters. Wesley insists he only wants to reach his family and that he needs to use the tunnels beneath the supermarket. After some thought, the masked leader reluctantly agrees to lead them to the tunnel entrance but warns they'll be on their own after that. Back at Lucy's home, she watches through the cameras as the street outside fills completely with creatures. They're no longer wandering aimlessly but moving in organized fashion, preparing for something larger. Meanwhile, Wesley and Amy advance slowly through the tunnels, only to find a massive gate blocking their way. Wesley prepares to blast it open with his gun, but before he can, a monster ambushes them from behind. With no option left, they fight. Before Wesley can fire, the beast lunges with full force, smashing the gate and hurling them to the ground. Amy is knocked unconscious in the impact, and Wesley is thrown aside again when he tries to rise. Just as the monster comes down on him, Wesley grabs a nearby iron rod and drives it into the creature with all his strength, killing it on the spot. A short while later, Amy regains consciousness and helps Wesley back on his feet. Together they press on until they find a passage leading directly to the street, but they hesitate, as the supermoon's glow blankets everything above. Covering themselves with a tarp, they creep forward into a nearby shop. Accidentally triggering the alarm, they quickly silence it, knowing the sound could lure the monsters straight to them. Each of them has one more dose of serum, but it's too hot to use, so they place it in a freezer to cool, the very reason they entered the shop. Back at Lucy's house, the electric fence is still holding, offering a fragile sense of safety. The creatures prowl close but can't break through, until they begin smashing the cameras one by one, leaving Lucy nearly blind with only 2 cameras still working. As Wesley and Amy wait for the serum to cool, Wesley confesses that he spent his whole life on missions around the world, never finding time to build a family. After his brother's death, he feels the responsibility is his, though he fears he's failing to protect them properly. Amy reassures him that he's doing everything he can, and that's what matters. Finally, the serum reaches the right temperature. Amy goes to gather something to keep it cool while Wesley hears a sound nearby. Investigating, he finds a young woman sitting with her back to him, seemingly eating something. When he calls out and asks how she got inside, the girl turns, and he sees she's half transformed, feasting on the flesh of a cat. Wesley doesn't want to shoot her and warns her to stay back, but she ignores him and attacks. Just then Amy arrives and shocks the young woman with a taser, knocking her unconscious. Meanwhile, the situation at Lucy's house worsens. Following Cody's orders, the werewolves begin attacking the electric fence in packs. The constant collisions make the house lights flicker. Lucy readies her shotgun and watches through the few cameras still working as one monster pushes a utility pole onto the fence, plunging the entire property into blackout. Now nothing stands between the creatures and her home except barricaded doors and windows. Some beasts get caught in traps, but the rest pound furiously, trying to break in. Lucy and Emma switch on emergency lights, take their position in the living room, and brace for the assault. Suddenly Lucy hears movement on the roof. Glancing up, she realizes one creature has been caught in Wesley's trap, buying them a little more time. Elsewhere, after another dose of serum, Wesley and Amy carefully move through the streets toward Lucy's home. Along the way they spot a group of heavily armed fighters, well prepared and shielded from the supermoon's glow, battling a horde of monsters. Wesley sees this as his chance to slip through and reach his sister-in-law and niece. The fighters temporarily push back the horde, and as Wesley and Amy step forward telling them not to shoot, they insist the serum protects them from the moonlight. Still, no one trusts them. Suddenly another werewolf attacks, and gunfire erupts again. Caught between bullets and beasts, Wesley and Amy scramble for cover. The fight intensifies, the entire area is overrun, and one by one the armed fighters are killed. Realizing they are completely trapped, Amy proposes a dangerous idea, using herself as bait to test her theory. Wesley protests, but Amy convinces him this is the only way he can reach Lucy. With a heavy heart, he tells her to come back alive. Amy steps forward, drawing the monster's attention. A massive werewolf approaches, sniffing her first without striking, then biting her lightly. Summoning her courage, Amy roars in its face, as if proving her strength. The beast roars back in response, just as Wesley unleashes an anti-aircraft gun from atop a car, spraying bullets. The monsters scatter in panic. Wesley yells for Amy to run to the car, but before she can reach it, a huge claw grabs her and drags her upward out of sight. Wesley looks around desperately, but both Amy and the creature vanish. Left with no choice, he drives on toward Lucy's home. Back there, Lucy fires at the creatures on the roof, killing a few, but more pour inside. Ammunition nearly gone, she has only a knife and pepper spray left, and the barricades are breaking. Finally, the monsters begin breaching the house one by one. Lucy grabs Emma and tries to hide, but the sound of a car horn blares outside. It's Wesley, back at last, trying to draw the monsters away. They swarm into the street, and Wesley floors the car, mowing them down. At the last second, Cody, now fully transformed, leaps onto the hood, sending the car crashing into a house. Lucy and Emma think they've escaped the worst, but another beast smashes through a wall and lunges at them. They run into another room, and Lucy quickly hides Emma inside a wardrobe. Holding her breath behind the door, Lucy waits. When the monster bursts in, it spots Emma immediately. The girl sprays it in the face, but the furious creature shrieks. Lucy attacks from behind, but the beast hurls her violently to the ground. Seeing her mother injured, Emma's eyes fill with both fear and tears, but that fear also sparks courage. With trembling hands she grabs a knife and stabs the beast with all her strength, but the strike has no effect on the horrifying creature. Enraged, the monster turns toward her, ready to tear her apart. At that moment Lucy summons the last of her strength, seizes the heavy axe beside her, and with a fierce cry strikes the demon with full force. The blow echoes through the room, silencing everything for a brief moment. Just then Wesley's desperate voice calls from outside. He bursts through the door, relief flooding his eyes when he sees his family alive. Quickly assessing their condition, he steals them for what's still to come, because the real danger is not over. Outside, Cody, trapped between the car and the wall, strains with monstrous power to free himself. Wesley knows they are out of bullets and out of options. Holding on to his last shred of hope, he makes a dangerous choice. Kneeling by Emma, he hugs her tightly and tells her to always be strong and never afraid, because she is his greatest strength. Then he hands Lucy his watch, with only minutes left until dawn, gives his family a final farewell, and walks out with steady steps. The moment he steps outside, the serum's effect fades completely. His bones crack and his flesh tears as his body transforms. Hair bursts from his back and his face distorts into the terrifying form of a werewolf. Now he too is a beast. Ahead of him, Cody has already broken free and waits for him. The two monsters clash violently, their roars shaking the ground and rattling the house's walls. The fight is so brutal that the earth turns red with each blow. Summoning all his might, Wesley eventually overpowers Cody, slamming him to the ground and defeating him. But victory brings new terror. Wesley himself is no longer human. Fear surges through Lucy's veins as she hides Emma in a safe spot and desperately searches the house for one last chance. Her eyes fall on a single shotgun shell on the floor. Snatching it up, she reloads and waits by the door. Heavy footsteps echo through the house as werewolf Wesley approaches. Lucy's breath quickens. Clutching an old family photo, she sobs, begging him not to hurt them if any part of him still remains inside. The beast bursts through the door, his eyes glowing like fire. Yet instead of attacking, he hesitates, as though her voice and the photograph pierce through to his soul. Suddenly he lets out a deafening roar that knocks Lucy backward. She scrambles for the shotgun, finger tightening on the trigger, when the watch beeps. Dawn has arrived. In one last desperate act, Lucy fires at the window. Glass shatters, and golden sunlight floods the room. The rays strike Wesley's face, burning the hair from his skin and forcing his bones to realign. Within moments, the monstrous form melts away, revealing Wesley once more, exhausted, scarred, but alive. With tears in his eyes, he smiles at the sight of Lucy and Emma safe before him. The family is whole again. The long, terrifying night ends with the light of the sun, bringing this harrowing journey to its close.